It's a real mess in here right now. I made the drawing last night. Here it is here. And then I made it on the back of this detour sign I mentioned previously. And it turns out that signs use a non-ductile aluminum. So when you go to fold the metal, it's not ductile. So that was something today I learned. So what I did is I had, this was the correct thickness that I wanted to use, 0.0907 rather. But I had some thinner stuff. This is about 80 thou, and it is ductile. I think it's 30-31. This is probably like a 70-75 or something. Probably not actually, because it's quite brittle. I know 70-75 is brittle as well. But anyway, I made another one, and it's in here. So I wanted to show you this. I'm gonna adjust the ISO here on the fly so you can see anything. And pop that on there. So cover's installed, and keep in mind this is a proof of concept. Things are not really connected yet, but everything is in here. I'm gonna take the one screw out here. Set it over there. Notice the switch is accessible here on the junction board. And then when we take the cover off, whoops, sorry. Here it is. So that is 60S. And let me straighten this camera back out here. I might increase the ISO more, sorry. There we go. How's that? Perfect. Okay, so yeah, we have the 3 modules on top. I don't have the bracket yet. I don't have any of the hardware, so this is all kind of just setting in here. And there is really no room for the grid charger. So what I think is going to happen with the grid charger, I found another spot, and that is, this is the fast grid charger, which is going to be, you know, all of these are going to have the fast, and then there's an even faster one as well. I'm probably going to just end up screwing it to the bottom of this enclosure here, and that way it's, you know, it's still able to cool itself, and it's not quite in the IMA bay, but it's close enough. We've of course already got the hole underneath here that we route cables through, so we can keep using that. Now on the MCM here, I mentioned this yesterday, you do need to cut this arm off. I haven't cut it off here yet, but you can see how there's a little bit of interference there. So we'll probably end up cutting that off, maybe not, I don't know. The wire harness, as I mentioned, you're gonna have to pull the electric tape all the way back and remove all of the conduit, and then we'll put more new conduit over it. If you look at one where that's been done, so you won't need to remove all of the conduit, but this is just my prototyping harness here. So this goes to the front, and then that is LiBCM, or the BCM, and oh, it plugs into that one. There's that, and then you can see there's plenty of room for these connectors here to plug in down there. And of course there will be other high current cables running through there as well, so that'll be fun. And then of course there's room here for LiBCM. LiBCM, as I mentioned yesterday, will be mounted to the aluminum IMA chassis right there. And yeah, so we'll start removing some of these modules. This would be the, you know, the final install where you would install, once you get all 3 of these on top, really the only thing that's left is installing the 6 current cables. So before then, take each battery module off. One thing I'll mention with these battery modules, you want to set them on a flat surface. There's very, very little protection on the bottom, as has been pointed out in the forums. So be careful with them. Even on video here, I gotta be careful with them. And you can see this is, of course, not the final solution. This is just what I have lying around stock-wise. It will be that angle bracket I showed previously. So here's 2 removed. And I know this takes a minute, but okay. Get rid of these. I figured doing this in reverse is easier than trying to actually put it all together on film. We'll get this out of the way too. 3. So what you see here is how it will be installed into the car. Yesterday I mentioned that we would install all 5 modules after we put the tray in, but since then I've actually changed the way these modules bolt together. Before I had a single 109 or 200 millimeter M8 bolt that went all the way through into PEMserts. That was really, really difficult to install this hardware and keep 8 pieces in the same spot. So what I'm doing instead, and I don't actually have the bolts yet, but I can illustrate to you. Just need to find the parts. Here's one of them. Okay. And second kit hardware. There. Probably should have prepared for this. So, if you can imagine that these bolts are actually 95 millimeters long, and then there's a standoff here that is 31.75 millimeters, that's 1 1/4 inch. What will happen is the long bolt will go up through the bottom of the tray and the modules, and then this will screw on top like that. And you will do this before you put the tray in there. Obviously, there's no way to hold on to this. We got rid of the PEMserts I mentioned before. So this will basically stick on top. This one's actually too tall, and it will screw through down, and that way all 8 of these will be permanently attached and affixed. And for that reason, you'll be installing the tray with these 2 modules. These modules, I believe, are like 26 pounds a piece. So it'll be like 52 pounds plus the junction board and the tray itself. It'll probably be about the same weight as the OEM pack. But at least you're not having to do all 5 modules. That would be too heavy. So yeah, this basically, you'll be able to hook up the 4 cables that come off here. I believe from yesterday, 2 of them don't actually hook up anything yet. You'll just like tape them to the side. And then the other 2 actually go to the junction board. So you'll route all of that here. You'll probably route all of that before you even put it in the car. You'll have a bunch of cables hanging off that junction board. BMS connectors will go on the side. We'll look at that again in a minute here. And then you can see, of course, there's plenty of room for LiBCM to attach here. You will have to attach LiBCM after you put this tray in because of how the tray sits in here. Now, one fortunate thing is that when I modeled this, I was very conservative, and there ended up being a much larger gap between the bottom of the tray and the top of the actual car, the aluminum frame, I guess, chassis, whatever it is. I guess this car has neither of those. So the good thing about that is it'll actually let me lower the entire pack. Right now it does fit, you saw that at the beginning, but it's pretty snug, and I'm gonna wanna lower this probably, I mean, I can stick my fingers underneath it, so I'm gonna probably lower it towards about 4 or 5 millimeters, and that way our bolts heads will still fit. You know, before we had PEMserts there, now we have bolt heads. But yeah, those bolt heads will pretty much bottom out on top, and I went ahead and looked, the bottom of this frame, well, I'll just keep taking these modules out while I'm talking here. The aluminum frame of this vehicle is not flat. It has a bunch of contours, and unfortunately every single spot that there's a bolt is like the highest point. And if we need to, we can do the old, like, the way Jim got his to fit, you know, is to beat those all down or whatever. I'm not really sure which parts he actually beat down. We might do that. I'm hoping we don't have to. You know, you see here it does already fit, but the modules will be slightly taller than they were as shown here because, again, we were missing that angle bracket that holds the 5th module on. So here is the actual bracket, and it is totally fabric hobbled. You can see that to make it fit, I had to drill a bunch of holes to bend this. I don't have a press, and even like the ones you rent at Home Depot, this metal is too thick for that. So I just used an arbor press and a couple of pieces of flat aluminum and a piece of wood as a hammer. But you can see how the junction board attaches here. It's a pretty neat fold there. And then we've got these guys here, and this is where the batteries mount. And once again, like these 8 holes here where the bolt heads are going to stick out are all at the highest spots of the IMA bay. Whoops. But yeah, so let's look at one other thing. So that's the tray. That's the fun, got it done for the day thing. Let me get this lid off real fast. Okay. I know it's all out of frame. I'm going to grab the camera in a second. Hey, what the heck? Might as well grab it now. Time to reposition in one take, because I don't like editing video, I found. So, let's mount this here. Like so. And then we will do one of these. That. See if I can get this. Hello. I'm just going to secure it and then I'll move whatever I'm using to look at it. Okay. You can almost see it. Let's move these that way. I can see it. Probably not totally in frame. So yeah, let's take this cover off and talk PCB. I don't actually remember how to take it off. But fortunately I have an extra one, so if I break it. Okay. So PCB wise, this is a dumb PCB. We've looked at it before. It does have 2 temp sensor connectors, and it does have a bunch of fuses here so that can blow out, which is neat. I haven't actually seen that on any other battery module, so that's pretty nice. If your BMS lead shorts out, instead of burning that 28 gauge wire or whatever, you might blow a fuse out. There's 2 temp sensors as well. We are not going to reuse these temp sensors on the PCB I make because they actually directly contact the intermediate voltages here. There is some insulation, but the actual temp sensor is not rated to withstand high voltage. So if we were to hook this up to the analog to digital converter on LiBCM, that would be a huge safety violation. The LTC6804 can measure temp sensors. It has a 5-channel ADC that's in addition. It's like a 5-volt aux ADC. However, we are not putting that circuitry on here. So the temperature sensors will be very similar to the way the EHW5 modules are now, where we're going to just bolt them to the chassis of the battery. So we'll just pick 3 batteries. You can get those temperature sensors longer. With LiBCM, they're only like 6 or 7 inches long. I believe you can get them up to like 21 inches pre-made. So maybe if there's a module we sense close by, we can use a short one and then a long one. We'll figure that out. Those are all implementation specific details. So replacing this PCB, I mentioned yesterday, there are a couple people looking at different ways of doing it. Again, the cleanest solution would be to put the LTC6804-1 part on there, but it's out of stock. And the cool thing about that is if you did that, you'd only have to route 2 wires, exactly 2 wires, no power and ground, just ISO-SPI plus and minus. And so you'd only have like 2 wires twisted pair routing to every module. We're not doing that. So we're gonna have through ribbon header, we're gonna replace this PCB. Simply because I don't want to make this connector. It is easier for me to just replace the PCB because then I'm not having to hand make each one. And we will cut this little box off right here. Turn a light on and see. Oh, there's a light here. How's that looking? Oh, now it's too bright. Turn it back off. Anyway, we're going to cut this plastic piece off, and that'll give us plenty of room to put a wider module on here, connector on here rather, and then we'll just plug a ribbon cable into here. And then that ribbon cable will plug into the LiBCM PCB here. So that'll be really nice because it'll take me like a minute to make each of those cables versus like 15 or 20 or whatever. So yeah, that is at least the initial battery solution for this, is to replace this PCB. And there actually, it turns out, someone pointed out to me, the manufacturer of this module actually sells a PCB here that has the battery management system on it. But I'm not even going to try to approach them about that because I'm not a car dealer or a car manufacturer, and they're going to laugh at me if I ask them if I can buy it. There's no way they would sell that to me. So I'll just make my own Tracy PCB. It'd be super cheap. Probably be 2-layer just because 2-layer costs the same as 1-layer nowadays. And that'll let us route the signals. I mean, LiBCM is 2 layers, so it'll be easy. We'll have plenty of room. We'll just put some big LiBCM logos or something. I don't know, something on there because that'll be a simple one. Yeah, so that is it. It's super neat to put these 5 modules in, or 4. I'm gonna probably start with the 4 modules because I don't have to change any of the firmware. And we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching.